Hello and a very warm welcome from ET Studios, ET HR World and HCL. I'm Divina Lasson and today we're here to deep dive into the fascinating topic of transforming work dynamics, an odyssey to empowerment and efficiency in the hybrid era, where we navigate the evolving landscape of remote and in-person collaboration. Join us as we explore strategies to empower teams to enhance efficiency and thrive in this new era of work. So, to discuss this and understand the future of hybrid work, we have with us today a very esteemed panel of experts. Do join me in welcoming our guest today, Anand R., Senior Vice President, HR HCL Tech and Board Member NHRD, Rahul Goyal, MD, India and Asia ADP, and Vimi Chachra, Senior Director, CHRO, Sopra Steria India. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here today on ET Studios. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, we're here to talk about a really important and very interesting topic, which is all about transforming the workplace, given this very hybrid work era that we're living in. So, if I could just ask each of you to kickstart the conversation, what would you say are some of the key ingredients that it takes to really maintain in a hybrid environment both efficiency but yet flexibility at the same time? Just some opening thoughts. Let's start with you, Anand.
Thanks, Devina. I think it's a very crucial question. A lot of transformation of workplaces happened into the hybrid world, but still people produce value by working together. So to figure out how to work together, even when we are separated out, and how we can consume each other's output, I think that will be the secret sauce for great work in the hybrid area.
Absolutely. We're going to deep dive into your key tips in how to achieve this. But Anand?
Yeah, so hybrid workplace is the new norm, as we all know. And India has actually done very well on hybrid workplace. ADP keeps producing these research reports, and the recent research says that in India, 42% of our workers, they like flexibility, right? Either remote or work from office or both together. And compare it to Singapore, for example, the flexibility available is only 24%, right? So I think India has done very well, and I think both organizations and workers, they have adapted to the new norm pretty well over the last 2 years.
Absolutely. We're going to deep dive actually into some of the data and statistics that I'm sure you have to share with us. But before that, Vimi, your thoughts on how to really balance efficiency as well as flexibility in a hybrid era?
For me, the main secret sauce for hybrid working is communication. And I'm saying this practically, running HR of my organization. I think I still have to do a lot of communication with my managers so that they can explain it to the team members. Rest, everything will come, the policy, the process, the tools. I think for me, it's really about communication. If it fails at this level, why we are doing hybrid? Because I tell you, there is multi-generational workforce today in organizations. So the data which Rahul pointed may be more towards the millennials and the younger workforce, but I see the leaders and the managers little bit disconnected from hybrid. They have their own work ethics, which is like working from office. Actually, ethic is working from office. And compare it with the millennials, or ethics is you can work from anywhere. You are anyway digitally connected. So how to bridge that gap? And that's why I said communication is the secret sauce.
Absolutely, that's such a valid point. And so, keeping in mind this need to keep a cohesive communication across your various teams, various strata, how would you, in your experience, say you have achieved really empowering your team, motivating them, making them feel included, like a valuable member of the team, regardless of where they are based and what their core work style is like?
Yeah, so if I have to say, the second ingredient is inclusion. So empowerment will happen if you can include everyone in your project meetings, in your way of working. Um, I think people feel empowered when they are engaged. So can you include everyone? Because if I just take an example, we often ignore the introverts in hybrid working. They are not the people who will raise their hand and say, I want to speak. So, as a leader, if I conduct a call, do I ask the most introverted people to speak? That's something I need to be aware of. Maybe in a physical setup, you can see all of us, you can ask us questions, and we can speak. But in a hybrid manner, people are on the call, they are inside the room, and you start giving preference to the people in the room and ignore the people on the call, and empowerment goes down in them. They start feeling a sense of, okay, the favoritism aspect has come in for people who are physically located, so I am not empowered to do it. I feel, leaders need to learn how to include everyone in the call so that there is no feeling of biasness and people feel empowered and engaged.
So inclusion is a very important subject, and thanks for bringing up Vimi. So, inclusion and empowerment, I think, go together. And I wanted to bring up another dimension of inclusion, right? And since we are in payroll business and salary processing business, what we find is that salary and pay is a fundamental to financial wellness. And just stay with the thought for a second, right? So, if employees feel that they are being paid fairly, timely, transparently, they feel empowered because they feel a sense of financial wellness. Now, financial wellness does not mean increase the salaries, right? Financial wellness means communicate, transparency, create a environment of trust, right? And if the employees, especially people who kind of work 3 days at home and 2 days in office, or vice versa, they need to feel empowered, and there's this extra bit that organizations would have to do to create that sense of trust and transparency.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you for that. And also to your previous point about the role of data, could you help us understand a little deeper now? How does data really get integrated in when it comes to understanding the policies, the performance strategies, evaluation strategies? I think you would be the best person to comment on this.
Yeah, so ADP is called as automatic data processing, and we have tons and tons of data. So I was talking to someone, and someone jokingly said, right, so these days people look at data more because they save time on commuting, right? So, but that aside, I think besides the nice looking graphs and charts and every other parameters that we look at, what is important, and two aspects that I would like to focus upon, and this is very prevalent and very relevant to the HR fraternity as well these days, is pay equity, right? So a lot of data analysis is being done by several organizations, how to ensure for a particular role, pay equity happens across the organization. That is one. And the second very important metric, which is rarely being talked about, is gender pay equity, right? So this is slightly different, right? So people used to talk about gender ratios, 30, 40, 50% female versus males, men versus women. But I think that's passé. Now the question getting asked is, out of the entire payroll cost of $100, how much is women getting paid and how much is men getting paid? And how do you create this equity between gender pay? And that is very important. And I feel with all that is happening around in India about women liberation and women going 2 steps ahead, I think the timing couldn't be right about these discussions.
Could you share some of the insights that you get through your process of data
Yes,
analysis?
we find that a lot of organizations, whilst they are very particular about gender ratio, bringing in more women into the work stream, but what we find is there is a gap between male and female pay, and the gap arises because of a very I would say a natural reason, but it needs to get course corrected. So women take breaks in the career, right, because of the life events, be it maternity leave, be it marriage break, and so forth. Whilst the entry point of men and women would be same, but they start lagging behind as they go to the mid level and the up level, right? And therefore, organizations and folks like Anand and Vimi, they continue to work at, how do we find that gap and how do we course correct that? And this is not a overnight affair, right? So it requires multi-year, multi-pronged strategy, right?
And Rahul, if I may ask you, would that gap increase with hybrid working? Because we are discussing this topical topic today.
So great question, and this has become a lot more conspicuous now, this gap, right? Because women also talk to a lot of people. This compensation and financial wellness has suddenly come at the forefront, right? It was kind of at the back burner pre-pandemic, I would say, but now all the organizations, all HR managers, they're thinking about it. In many countries like UK, Australia, legislations have been passed where pay equity has to be established, and I think I love that scenario, and I'm sure this would happen in India soon as well.
Yeah, I asked because one of the women, we do our annual appraisal in January. She came to me and asked me, have I got less salary because I have not been able to follow the hybrid model of working? So I already see that question coming to me. So I think as HR leaders, we also need to review this pay parity data in our company and see, are we doing something wrong in relation to the hybrid working data?
I think good set of things that you put forth with me. Actually, the whole point of bringing about this positive change is through data, right? So I mean, we live in a world of big data where we make evidence-based decisions. So I'll share some experiences, right? So when we talked about the generation gap, right? Every generation may have a different preference and mindset. How do you convince older generation that it is okay to work hybrid? By data. So what data? So you say, whether you are working in a small town and where you have acquired talent and opened a center, they are as productive as people in big cities. Men are as productive as women and women are as productive as men. So the moment you bring that kind of data and information into the equation, you are able to change people's perception very well. And to the point that you all said, this parity can be looked at and demonstrated. We don't have to be theoretical about it. We can say that, okay, look, people work like this. This is where they got paid. And I think the importance of collecting data and having a strategy to collect this data and to utilize it for decision making and changing perceptions is extremely critical.
Absolutely. Could you share, Anand, in your vantage point, some best case scenarios, some use cases of how it's worked very well actually when it comes to collection of data and really using that, translating that into creating the policies that will guide your hybrid work models?
No, definitely. So let's say that a employee demonstrates that they are as productive when they work from home compared to when they work in office. And it's not one-off, right? It's over a long period of time. And let us say we take and we do collect such kind of information, and we say we collect information at the aggregate level and say all those. So let's say 40,000 people work from home today, 30,000 people worked in office today, and their productivity is very comparable, right? So that is a vantage point with which we can bring about this change. And the second thing is, let's say I worked continuously from 10 to 6. Or I started in the morning 8 to 9, then took a break for 2 hours, then I worked from 11 to 5, then took 2 hours break again, then after I had my dinner, did another 2 hours. Now, was I more productive? If the answer is yes, why should we be hung up about 10 to 6? So I think the crucial thing is, how can we collect this information, very maturely dialogue about it, and then use that to guide policy and decision making.
Absolutely. So what would you say are some of the sort of key takeaways and guidance that you would give to organizations when it comes to them analyzing their own structures in their hybrid work models?
I think organizations, our own journey says that we need to think about what data we want to collect, why we want to collect, and it's not only from productivity angle, it's also from a well-being angle.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
So some individuals, for example, prefer to segment. So they will say, my work and life have to be balanced. So when I am in my personal time, I don't want work. And when I am at work, I don't want personal things to interfere. So they are segmenters. And there are some who are integrators. There's nothing like one is right or wrong. But if you were to, at the end of the day, say, so we have a particular platform where people say, today was a productive day, or I feel good about what I did today. and people answer on a 5-point scale that question. Now, when they regress that back to whatever happened during the day, they can discover whether they prefer to segment or to integrate. Whether they want to take 10 breaks and then do it over 15 hours, or they want to do a continuous 8 hour and be done. Right? So I think that kind of both from a well-being angle and a productivity angle, if we know what we want to collect and use, we can use models to say this works for you. It's not only about organization; it's about individual. Okay, what works for me?
So I think it's a great point, right? So I just want to add some color to it. So post pandemic, and especially in the hybrid environment, employee sentiments and behaviors have undergone a sea change, right? Uh, and people are expressing without any guilt that, hey, I don't want to work during morning times and I want to work only that time, etc. And organizations would therefore need to have time and attendance capturing devices, right? So they would need to capture it. Earlier it was a trust based scenario, but then trust based scenario is good, but when you have a large workforce and you want controls and disciplines, etc., I think a little bit of a time capture is very important. uh, and many organizations I see are now investing in those tools and technologies, and I think it's important that this happens continuously.
I think very very good point Rahul made. See, if we knew flexibility works for both the individual and the organization, and based on data you are able to guarantee flexibility, then you have created a different value proposition. You don't have to be the highest pay master. You can still attract a very good share of talent, right? So that's the advantage of collecting data and utilizing that to take some very bold bets.
Yes, wonderful. Vimi, same for you. How do you really assess the balance between flexibility, efficiency? How do you take that forward when it comes to understanding what's working for your team and what isn't as an HR leader?
So there was a time we were completely remote, yeah, in COVID. Before that, we did not even have a work from home policy. So it was 180-degree shift for us. And then we came to hybrid. That's when we thought we need to look at our policies and processes and help people work from home now. That was the first time. And I mean, Anand and Rahul have spoken about productivity tools. We still have to, I would say, deploy them really. But we have tools in the form of policies for the managers. So for me, it became a task. How do I enable my managers to manage the hybrid working? I think we put a lot of stress on that last year when we launched the hybrid working policy, and we don't have completely remote workers now. Everyone has to come 3 days to office and 2 days you can work from home. But we also gave flexibility there. You can choose with your manager which 3 days you want to come. I think today's generation wants that. And we recently conducted our Great Place to Work survey. People want more flexibility than this. You know, they even want to choose how many days they come to office. So I think we have to listen to the voice of the employee and keep changing. It's been 6 months for us to launch our hybrid working policy. We are regrouping on the table to see, okay, this is the data which is coming from hybrid working. This is the attendance data, this is the productivity data, and this is what the survey is saying. So look at all the aspects together and take the next step rather than just going on your intuition or what the industry is doing or what the stalwarts of the industry are saying. Yes, it gives you a direction, but you have to look inside your organization and the data which is sitting inside your organization, and data and the sentiments of the people.
Yeah, just want to add something. The policy making in hybrid environment is very difficult because you have so many voices coming from different angles, and you always think which constituent you should listen to, right? And it's difficult, right? So and I have gone through that, and I'm old school, I would say. I always want people to work at office, right? So but never mind. The point I'm saying is balancing And when we brought up this multi-gen workforce, which adds further complexity to the entire equation, right? So one of the things that we found which worked, right, and I just thought I'll share that with you, right? So forming this cross-functional project teams, right, giving people stretch projects. I thought earlier people will whine a little bit, oh, besides work, why am I doing it, etc. But the learning quotient has suddenly increased, or the appetite to learn new skills have so much increased over, I say, last 18 months, 2 years, that people want to participate in these cross-functional projects. And when they come together, they talk and they engage with each other, and maybe that's one of the ways to mitigate this gap, so as to speak, right?
Very interesting. Anand, anything to add to that?
No, I think Rahul makes a very good point. So, when you mix up teams across, first of all, they will learn how to discover how to work with a diverse set of people, and it improves the overall diversity quotient of the organization. And there is another angle to diversity and inclusion. People who prefer from working from home versus people who prefer working from home. How do they work together? That is the essence of inclusion, right? So, and as Vimi said, yeah, you can have intuitions and this thing, but look at the data and see whether on the whole we are, it's working for us or not. I think that will be in everything we collect data, right? We want to know whether it works or not. We don't believe but why shouldn't we do it with our work data and our well-being data? Why don't we do that? We have an Apple Watch says we slept very well or we did not sleep very well. But why can't we do the same thing about work and well-being together, putting the two together and seeing what works for us?
One more point, Lavina, I'll add. Maybe it was spoken by Anand a little bit, well-being. I think we have to take care of the wellness much more than what it was pre-COVID. Because a healthy employee can be a productive employee. Um the number of cases are increasing with respect to mental wellness. So I think every organization needs to have a focus on of course, the physical wellness, but the mental wellness of the employees. I'm sure mature organizations have employee assistance program. We launched it in COVID. We did not have it before COVID because a lot of employees will continue to work, be less productive, but we don't come to know what is bothering them. Is there something happened at home, or because you're not coming to office, or some trauma has happened, some life event has happened. um, on coffee conversations you were getting to know, but here I think the HR people, the managers have to touch on this aspect with the employee, that are you well, rather than, okay, what code you have produced. I mean, before you ask that, because I think a healthy employee will give you much more productivity.
I think it's something organizations are more and more cognizant of ever since, as you were saying, COVID has shifted everything in the way teams function. So, absolutely. Wonderful. Thank you so much to all of you. Really wonderful insights here. On a closing note, if I could ask each of you to give the top trend that you would really recommend to HR leaders out there to be aware of when it comes to them being able to really guide their hybrid work model into the best possible efficiency. Some key takeaways for the HR leaders. Anand, maybe we can start with you.
Collect data, survey employees, decide.
Yeah, great.
I would say pay fairness and transparency.
I'll say use your head, your heart, and your hands to navigate in the hybrid world.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you for all your
Thank you,
insights.
Lavina.